to the Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What's going on, guys? It is Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL edition, week 4 picks. I am Reese Downing. With me, as always, as Jacob Workman. Jake, what's going on, man?
What's up, everyone? Welcome back for another wonderful episode.
That's right. We're rocking and rolling here well into the season at this point. First things first, let's touch base on what happened last week. So we are getting better as we move into the season here. I think a little bit more telling with some of these teams. Last week, Workman ended up at 10-6. I ended up at 11-5, and our guest pick, John Taxis, also ended up in the positive at 9-7. And just like our NCAA football show, they agreed to, whether they liked it or not, and landed on doing well, but not better than us. So, John, we appreciate your picks and bringing you on the show. We'll probably do our best to bring you guys on at some point again or later this year. Both Carter, who was on our NCAA football show, and Taxis, who showed up for our NFL podcast. So thank you guys for that. We also hit all 3 locks. So I had Miami, Workman had Philly, and Taxis had Seattle. So we went 6-6 this week between our NCAA football and our NFL picks for locks. So moving in the right direction here. First thing we'll talk about quickly is some injuries, some key injuries. Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers is out for the year with a torn ACL. That's rough. Derwin James also left with a thigh/hamstring injury. Sounds like that's not as serious. It still sucks for Derwin. He's such a good player, but it seems like he kind of struggles to stay healthy. Derek Carr, AC joint sprain. They took him to a local hospital during the game. It looks like it's not quite as bad as what they thought it was going to be, but it looks like he is going to be week to week. So we'll be seeing King Jameis under center here for at least another week.
Right.
I know Workman loves that.
Hell yeah.
Concussion protocol wise, we have both Jimmy Garoppolo and Gus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens under concussion protocol. So those are obviously a little bit difficult to forecast, but both of those guys as of right now are still under concussion protocol, and we do not know if they're going to be playing this week. The last 2 things I have here quickly, JC Jackson, he was a healthy scratch on Sunday, and now he has a warrant out for his arrest for violating his probation. So I don't know how much longer he's going to be in an NFL uniform, but something to keep eye out for. That being a healthy scratch, we kind of knew something was coming, but I didn't know that was going to be what was happening. And then another thing I wanted to point out, last week we briefly discussed that Bears defensive coordinator Alan Williams resigned as the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. He cited needs to take care of his health and family. While that's still unclear, it has since come out that Williams did not resign over criminal activity, but inappropriate behavior. That's all the information that I've heard. Schefter released that information within the last 24 hours, I think. So I guess that's good news that it's not as bad as what we potentially thought it was or heard, but he's still no longer the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. So I'm not sure who's stepping into that position at the moment. I'm assuming that they're probably looking to have somebody fill the position. I don't know if they're going to just promote somebody from within to get through the season, but it's still pretty early. So you would think they would be looking, for a potential DC to step in. All right, let's go through a recap on a couple of these games from last week. So first things first, we're going to go with Houston Texans at Jacksonville Jaguars. Houston Texans won that game 37-17 in Jacksonville. CJ Stroud finished 20 for 30 with 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. Devin Singletary was their lead rusher with 9 carries and 41 yards. Tank Dell came out 5 receptions for 145 and a touchdown. He had a good game. On the Jag side of the ball, Trevor Lawrence finished 27 of 40 for 279 yards, 1 touchdown and a pick. Travis Etienne finished with 19 carries for 88 yards, and leading receiver was Evan Ingram with 7 receptions for 67 yards. So far this year, Jacksonville's offense is 18th in scoring, and their defense is in the bottom 10 in the league in points allowed, giving up almost 350 yards per game, including an average of 265 yards per game in passing. Trevor Lawrence's passer rating is currently sitting at 84.5, good for roughly 21st in the league, behind the likes of Russell Wilson, Joshua Dobbs, CJ Stroud, Baker Mayfield, Jordan Love, Mac Jones, Brock Purdy. Understanding it's still early, some experts had this team as the number 1 seed going into the playoffs in the AFC. Sitting at 1-2 right now, the Jags' next 6 games are the Falcons in London this week, the Bills in London the following week, a home game against the Colts, a road game against New Orleans, a road game in Pittsburgh, and a home game against the Niners. Workman, where do you see this team sitting after the first 9 games of the season?
I'll go through it game by game. I think they beat Atlanta and London, and I think they follow up the next week and lose to the Bills. So we got 1-1 there. Home game against the Colts, I think they win that. So that's 2-1. I think they lose to New Orleans on the road. I know it's kind of questionable who will be the quarterback at that point, but that's still a tough place to play. And I trust New Orleans a little more at home in that one. So what's that? 2-2. Road game at Pitt, I think they'll lose that, so that's 2-3. And a home game, so I would say 2-4 there, so that puts them at 3-6 at that point.
They making the playoffs?
They're gonna have to really hope that everyone else in that division struggles and that they might sneak in still.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the season, everybody thought they were an automatic shoo-in to win this division, but I don't know if that's the case anymore. I can easily see them losing one, if not both games in London, but for sure the Bills game. The Colts just beat the Ravens on the road, so that's not a guaranteed win. The Saints in New Orleans could easily be a loss because that defense is well. Kamara is going to be back in the mix. A road game against Pittsburgh and then the Niners. This team could easily end up between 2-7 and at best 4-5, but I'll be shocked if they're above 500 after 9 games, which is not where I think most people projected this team to be. So I don't know really what the answer is. Trevor Lawrence, again, I just rattled off a bunch of quarterbacks that I was really surprised have better passer ratings or better QB ratings right now than Trevor Lawrence does. So that could be potentially part of the problem, but be interested to see what happens here in the next few weeks with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, there's some questionable stuff coming out of there too with if Doug Peterson, there's been a lot of questions if he's been actually calling the plays, and he says the answer is no. To me, that's pretty surprising. Like, I don't understand. Like, that's what he's there for. So, I mean, especially if they start losing these games, you would have to think that he's going to take that back over and try to get something rolling with the offense.
You would think, yeah, if he's not calling plays right now, he needs to. That's pretty clear. All right, next game we're going to take a look at is the absolute throttling here that happened in Miami. Denver at Miami. The final score was Denver Broncos 20, Miami Dolphins 70. 7-0. The Miami Dolphins scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, 3 touchdowns in the second quarter, 2 touchdowns in the third, and 3 touchdowns in the fourth. Russell Wilson finished 23 of 38 with 306, a touchdown and a pick. Javonte Williams was the leading rusher for the Broncos with 11 carries for 42 yards, and their leading receiver was Cortland Sutton with 8 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown. On the Dolphins side of the ball, Tua ended up at 23 for 26, extremely efficient, 309 yards and 4 touchdowns. Davon, I just saw that he announced today that, or he told Miami that he wants to change how he says his name. Yeah. So, I mean, Meta World Peace here ended up with 18 carries for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then finally, Tyreek Hill led the receiving yards here, 9 catches for 157 and a touchdown. A few months ago, Sean Payton called Nathaniel Hackett's previous season as the head coach of the Broncos, quote, one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL after going 5-12 and giving up 359 points over the course of the 2022 season. Sean Payton has started his career with the Broncos going 0-3, is coming off one of, if not the worst loss in NFL history because Mike McDaniel pulled back. They very easily could have broken the record. And he's given up a third of the same points that the Broncos did all year in a matter of 3 games. One, my first question to you is this a coaching team or organizational problem? And 2, if this season doesn't get any better, do the Broncos go with another one and done head coach and start the search again?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you put it on coaching or the team. I mean, obviously it's a whole new regime coming in, so you got to give them a little bit of time to get things rolling. So I guess maybe you put a little bit more on the team just because of what they went through last year. Maybe there's some lingering effects from that. But for 2, I don't think it's Sean Payton. I think it's Russ that would be gone. I think Sean definitely is going to get more than 1 year. I think Russ would be the one that is immediately out the door. I forget who said it. It might have been Michael Lombardi. Someone said it the other day that Russell Wilson is the problem to Sean Payton. That's not his type of quarterback, and that's why he's struggling. I don't remember exactly who said it. I think it was Michael Lombardi, but to me, that's kind of like a cop out answer. I mean, they're both supposed to be fantastic at what they do. They should be able to work together and get it done with the roster that they have. This is not looking like a promising season for them. So if I had to guess next year, from if this continues, we still see Sean Payton, but we don't see Russell Wilson.
Yeah, this team's been on the decline since Peyton Manning and Gary Kubiak left. So I don't really know if this is the team has changed in that matter of time, and the coaching has changed. So I honestly think this is more of an organizational thing. Their combined record is 35 and 66. They've had 0 winning records so far in the last 7 seasons. A step in the right direction, I think, would be getting rid of Vance Joseph. He has a horrible track record as a coach. I have no idea why they brought him back to Denver in the first place. The second thing would be to let go of George Patton. They performed underwhelmingly, to say the least, in the draft. And then they gave up not only 2 first round and 2 second round picks for Russ Wilson, but then gave him a ridiculous contract, which is going to cash strap the team for the foreseeable future. That extension came out to $49 million a year and runs through 2028, including $165 million in guarantees, and $124 million of that was guaranteed at signing. That's the second largest contract in the NFL ever. So I just don't know how Denver gets out from under this for the next few years, which is going to be more than a decade of mediocrity. I mean, how do you? I agree with you that getting rid of Russell Wilson is the answer, but that's a tremendous amount of money to just throw out the window and say we made a mistake. So I don't know if Russell Wilson's the one who ends up going, and that's the only thing that I'm not confident in. It seems to be the logical answer, but organizationally, they have to make a big change if that's what they decide to do, because
I just don't think
people.
I don't think there's any way they get rid of Sean Payton after only 1 year, though. So, and I don't think they can bring both of them back for another year. So I think by default they've got to get rid of one. So I just think Russell's the one because of that. I know it's a huge hit to him, but
yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a huge overreaction to say that Sean Payton needs to lose his job, right? So I think that was kind of a softball answer as far as whether or not they get rid of Payton, but I just don't know what the answer is for Denver. Like Mile High is just they're not doing all right. So we'll see what happens here as the season ends, but Denver is not looking very good right now. The last recap game we're going to go to, unfortunately, is the Dallas Cowboys at the Arizona Cardinals. Dallas lost 16-28 at the hands of Joshua Dobbs. Dak Prescott ended up at 25 of 40 with 249 yards, a touchdown, and the pick. Leading rusher, as usual, Tony Pollard with 23 carries for 122 yards. And Michael Gallup, my boy Michael Gallup, ended up with a few receptions, 6 receptions, I think, or 5 receptions for 92 yards. On the Cardinal side of the ball, Joshua Dobbs, very efficient, 17 of 21, only 189 yards, but he did have a touchdown. He had quite a few rushing yards. Leading rusher was James Conner, 14 carries, 98 yards, and a touchdown. And receiving leader was Michael Wilson, who only had 2 catches for 86 yards, I believe. So my question to you is this. Are the Cardinals a little better than everyone anticipated because they have been keeping themselves in games all year? Or do you think they potentially have exposed a blueprint in beating Dallas with this team on defense by leveraging the run game and speed?
So one thing, the NFL is always going to be the NFL. There's always going to be stuff like this happens. That's why it's so great. Shitty teams win games that they're not supposed to win. I mean, it happens. I mean, if you look this week, I mean, Cardinals, Colts, Texans, all won games. So I mean, it's just something. It happens in the NFL. I am a little surprised at how they're performing, though. Clearly, the defense has been playing pretty well to keep them in all the games so far this year. Definitely teams that are playing the Cowboys are going to be taking a look at this to see what exactly Arizona did. But not everyone I mean, Rondell Moore is very fast. Not every team has a Rondell Moore. So using the speed aspect of it, I mean, if you have someone that can do it, great. But I just think it's more of those, you chalk it up to the NFL being the NFL, and we'll move on to the next week and see what happens. I will say I am surprised by the Cardinals and how they've kept every game close, though.
Yeah, for sure. And very, very surprised with how Arizona's been playing. From a Cowboys fan standpoint, I'm not going to overreact to this loss as much as I'm triggered to. That said, I'm also not going to make any excuses because there aren't any. Like, we had 3 of our 5 offensive linemen out. That sucks, but it's next man up. All teams deal with injuries. There's too many playmakers on this offense for them to not find ways to work around it. The problem is the same problem the Cowboys have had in recent years. They shoot themselves in the foot with penalties, and then they struggle to convert in the red zone. 10 penalties in a game is unacceptable, and we had 10 in the first half of football and finished with a total of 13. You can't win football games like that. They also had 3 rushers that had at least 50 yards, and all of them averaged over 7 yards a carry, and we didn't have any injuries on the front 7. That's not acceptable. Arizona is speedy and is sticking in games that nobody expected them to. I'm honestly a little surprised that Quinn didn't have these guys a little better prepared, knowing that they were going to try to utilize those speed weapons. I don't know the answer to the red zone problems, but McCarthy needs to figure it out. We can't keep putting 3 on the board when we should be putting 7. Doing that 3 times in a game is an 11-point swing, and a lot of NFL games are decided by less than that. So you have to be able to convert in the end zone. More focus needs to be put on red zone offense, in my opinion, each week during practice. I'm honestly glad this happens because the first 2 games, the Cowboys and a lot of Cowboys fans were really puffing out their chest, and a lot of people got overly confident in this team. Like you said, it's the NFL, so games like this are going to happen. But I think this was something that was needed. That, the schedule does not get any easier. They have the Patriots, the Niners, the Chargers, the Rams, and the Eagles in the next 5 games, and 3 of those are on the road. With San Francisco, the Chargers, which really isn't a home game for the Chargers, but it's still on the road, and then
Right.
at Philly. So I'm not overreacting to this, but there are some very glaring issues that I was really hoping had been fixed to a point or had been addressed to an extent coming into this season. And it was kind of more of the same. The penalty thing is really, I think, the most frustrating thing. Taxis, who was on the show with us last week, is another Cowboys fan, and we talked a bit about this. Those penalties, man, you can't do that and expect to win football games. So hopefully we get healthier on the offensive side of the ball. We'll see what happens. But I am surprised at how Arizona has been hanging into games here despite some pretty key injuries, primarily not having Kyler Murray out there. Joshua Dobbs has been pretty serviceable, all things considered. All right, guys, let's jump into some week 4 matchups. We're going to start things off here with Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions traveling to Lambeau to meet Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. This is our Thursday night matchup. Detroit's coming off a strong 20-6 victory against the Atlanta Falcons, while Green Bay won a close game at home against the New Orleans Saints after the Saints lost Derek Carr to the shoulder injury. Detroit is favored -1.5 here. What you doing, Workman?
I'm going to take the Lions to cover. Both teams are kind of battling some injuries. I know some guys are coming back, especially for Green Bay. I think they're getting Watson back. But this is a tough game. The Lions went on the road week 17 or 18 last year and ruined their season at home. So I think they want a little bit of payback for that. I like what the Lions are doing right now, and Green Bay realistically should not have won that game last week at all. That injury was huge for him. I'm gonna take the Lions to keep it rolling. I like them to cover and win this game.
Yeah, I'm going with Detroit here too. I like you said, I know Green Bay's not forgetting that loss late last year. It knocked them out of playoff contention, but I think the Lions come into Green Bay and take care of business. So I'll take Detroit minus the 1.5. Next game here, Desmond Ridder and the Atlanta Falcons travel across the pond to London and Wembley Stadium to face off against Trevor Lawrence and a Jacksonville Jaguars team that has just gotten thumped at home by CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. The Jags are on a 2-game skid, and Atlanta has a pretty strong running game. Jacksonville is favored -3. What's your pick?
Yeah, we talked about this one just a few minutes ago with that question of their upcoming schedule. I do like Jacksonville in this one. I think it's now or never for them, really. So I think they've got to get right and win this one and cover.
Yeah, if Jacksonville can force Ridder to throw the ball, they should be able to get ahead and then control the game by keeping the ball out of Bijan Robinson's hands. I think that's going to be the difference, but I'm going to take the Jags -3 here. All right. Next up, we have the blistering white hot Miami Dolphins offense traveling north to Buffalo to face Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. This is going to be a battle between one of the best offenses and the best defenses in the league. Josh Allen's been playing well these past couple weeks, so it's just a matter of whether or not McDaniel can scheme against this Buffalo defense and find ways to move the ball down the field. Buffalo is currently favored -3. What's your pick, Workman?
So last week, Washington actually had quite a few good drives against Buffalo. Sam Howell just he threw so many bad decision picks. I don't know what he was doing, but I like the way what I could see them doing moving down the field against Buffalo. So it had me questioning their defense a little bit. I mean, I know in the end they got the turnovers and the stops, but I Miami, I think is a little different animal. So I like Miami to not only cover, but I will take them to win this out.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a statement game for Miami. McDaniel has this team scoring at will. The Bills have played the Jets, the Raiders, and the Commanders so far. None of them are anywhere near the offensive speed and power this Dolphins team has. So I'm with you. I'm taking Miami +3. All right. Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers are heading to Houston to face CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. The Steelers are coming off a 5-point win on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders, while the Houston Texans just finished a statement victory on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pittsburgh is favored -3 here. I'm a little surprised at how well the Texans played last week against Jacksonville and think they can carry that momentum as they head back home. Kenny Pickett's also coming off his first multi-touchdown game of his career, which that statistic on its own is a little bit eye-opening, but I'm going to take Houston here +3. What are you doing, Jake?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing here for Pittsburgh. They were on the road in Vegas. They had flight issues going back. They were stuck on a plane in Kansas City for like 12 hours. Finally got home. They're going on the road again to play Houston. Houston's putting J.J. Watt in the Ring of Honor in this game, which his brother's going to be there playing. Both brothers are going to be there playing against him. I just I find it hard to think that Houston could do it 2 weeks in a row. So I am going to take Pitt to cover this and get the win.
All right. Next up here, we have Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams traveling to our home state of Indiana to face an Indianapolis Colts team that just won a surprising game on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. The Rams are coming off a short week and just lost a 3-point game against Burrow and the Bengals. Indy is favored by -1.5.
Yeah, so I think Anthony Richardson's going to be back for this game. That's probably why they got a little bit of a bump there to get the favor. That and the Rams were just prime time Monday night, going back to LA, coming back to Indy on Sunday. This one's a tough one for me. That Rams offensive line just concerns me a lot. They started so good, and last night, I mean, he just got murdered. That's a tough one. I'm gonna take the Colts to cover this and win.
The Colts have surprised me a little bit this year under Steichen, despite not having Jonathan Taylor and Richardson missing a game. The Rams are really equally surprising to me, though, keeping that offense moving despite not having Cooper Kupp. I I'm surprised, honestly, that you're taking Indy here. I think McVay is going to find a way to pull this one out on the road, so I'm going to take the Rams plus the points. All right. So next up, we have the Kirk Cousins here. Yep. Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings are heading to Charlotte to play either Andy Dalton or Bryce Young. I don't think we know yet. And the Carolina Panthers. The Vikings are coming off yet another one possession loss last week against the Chargers at home, while the Panthers lost by 10 in Seattle. Minnesota is favored by 3.5 here. I'm excited to see what Thielen is going to do against Minnesota, even though it's not in Minnesota. Neither of these teams really impress me, so it'll probably be a pretty closely contested game. I'm going to take Carolina here plus the 3.5.
That's what I was leaning also. Yeah, I'll take the points. I'll take the 3.5.
All right. Next game we have Jameis Winston, not Derek Carr, Jameis Winston and the New Orleans Saints are home this week with the return of Alvin Kamara after losing a close game to the Packers on the road to face a Tampa Bay team that has surprised some folks with Baker Mayfield under center. The Bucs just lost their Monday night matchup against the Eagles, so they'll be coming off a little bit of a short week. New Orleans is favored by 3.
It seems like every year that New Orleans beats Tampa in New Orleans. I don't know why. It just seems like it happens literally every year. I like Jameis going back against Tampa. I still like the Saints roster. I think they're a good team. There's really no reason they should have lost that game at Green Bay last week. So I like them to return home, get the win, get the cover.
I hate this line and think it could end up being a push, but I am going to take the Saints here at home with Kamara suiting up on his first game of the year in a revenge game for your boy Jameis. Next, we have Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders trying to shake off a beating from the Buffalo Bills and heading to Philly for an NFC East showdown against an undefeated Philadelphia Eagles team that just got a win on Monday night. Philadelphia is favored by 8.5 in this one.
I mentioned it when I talked about the Buffalo game. I saw enough from Sam Howell last week to lose a lot of faith. His god awful decision making, and going against Philly's defense in Philly, this is not going to be a promising event for him. I'm going to take Philly to cover this.
Yeah, I think the Commanders team looked a little better than they actually are the first 2 weeks of the year, and they're really struggling to protect Sam Howell, kind of like we were just talking about. That spells trouble when you're going up against this Eagles front. AJ Brown also finally got going in this last game, so I'm going to take Philly here minus the 8.5.
And I know we mentioned it in our draft episode we did. Jalen Carter, I think, is far and away the steal of the draft.
Yeah, it's not even close.
It's
not even close. Oh man, that guy's going to be tough for a long time. Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have possibly the worst game of the year. Russell Wilson and the 0-3 Denver Broncos try to erase last week from their memory as they travel north to the Windy City to face Justin Fields and a Chicago Bears team that is yet to put it together this year as well. Denver is favored by 3.5 on the road. Again, this may be the most boring game of the year. I'm going to take the Bears to cover the 3.5, but this game may be 3-0 by the end of it. I don't think Broncos or Bears fans even want to tune into this.
And that pick really shocked me. I was not expecting that. I'm taking Denver to cover, and this is like if you lose this one in your Denver, the wheels fall off immediately. I don't know. You can't lose to the Bears in this situation. So I'm gonna hope that we might actually see signs of life from Denver this week and they cover, because I mean the Bears are terrible. So, and their defense, who the hell even knows what's going on with their defense? You would think for 1 week Denver could do something on offense. So maybe this is the week. So I'm gonna take Denver.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Okay, next up, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens are coming off a loss against the Colts in overtime to face a Cleveland Browns team that just held the Tennessee Titans to 3 points at home. Both teams are sitting at 2-1, and Cleveland is favored by 2.5.
This is a tough one. This is going to be a great game. I absolutely love what Schwartz has done with Cleveland's defense. I just, because at the beginning of the year I picked Baltimore to win the division, I think I've got to keep riding with them, especially in these divisional games. So I am going to take Baltimore to cover the 2.5.
It's a little wild to me.
Get the 2.5. Sorry.
To get the 2.5. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, it's a little wild to me that the Browns held Burrow and Derrick Henry to 3 points each, but then gave up 26 to Kenny Pickett. But that's the NFL, right? I mean,
right.
Baltimore's dealing with some injuries right now. I'm going to take the Browns here minus the 2.5, but this game could go either way. I won't be surprised if Baltimore comes out on top. Okay, wrapping up our 1 p.m. games here, we have Joe Burrow and the 1-2 Cincinnati Bengals coming off a tight win at home against the Rams to face Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans, who failed to find the end zone last week. Titans have won their only game this year at home. Cincy is favored by 2.5. The Titans' passing defense is not good. I think Burrow is feeling a little better each week, if not just gaining more tolerance for pain in that ankle. I think the Bengals forced the Titans to throw the ball here, which is not what Tennessee wants. So I'm going to, give me Cincinnati minus the 2.5. One thing I did want to mention, I talked to my stepdad about this a little bit. Will Levis is out right now, right? So it would be Malik Willis who would be stepping in if Tannehill can't play. But knowing that Hendon Hooker is going to be out for the year, man, like I was not overly impressed with Levis coming into the season, and I think Tennessee possibly missed a golden opportunity to pick up Hendon Hooker and taking Will Levis instead. The only reason I'm bringing that up is because my stepdad and I literally talked about it for like 10 minutes last night about how surprised we were, and actually pretty excited to see Hendon Hooker once he gets healthy. to be able to play. Obviously, it may be a little bit with him being in Detroit and Goff playing the way that he is,
It
but
might be a long time.
yeah, Tennessee is going to be searching for a quarterback here soon. Tannehill just seems to be getting worse and worse.
Yeah, and we saw what Cincinnati's defense could do last night. I mean, they brought it. I don't know. To me, this is one of those get right games for the NFL. I see no way Cincinnati can be 1-3 or whatever they would be. So I like Cincinnati to win and cover.
All right, let's move into some 425 games. Starting off, the Las Vegas Raiders travel further west to Los Angeles to face off against Justin Herbert and a Los Angeles Chargers team that just lost Mike Williams for the year. The Raiders are coming off a loss at home against the Steelers, while the Chargers are coming off a win on the road against the Vikings. The Chargers are favored by 6.
I'm going to take the Chargers just because questions with Garoppolo. Not really sure if he's going to be playing. I know it's not a home field, but they are at least on their home field. A little bit of advantage there, I would say. Vegas isn't really a home field either, so both of those teams kind of just play wherever they play, and whoever shows up shows up. None of them really have home crowds, so it's kind of an interesting thing with those two teams. But I do think the Chargers. I just think you've got to keep it rolling if you're the Chargers. So I like them to. 6 is a lot actually in this game, but with Garoppolo potentially out for now, I got to take the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. Because we don't know if Garoppolo is going to play, I think it makes it harder to predict. If he does, it's possible the Raiders could keep in this game, keep it somewhat close anyway with Tay Adams and Jacoby Myers testing that secondary. But as of right now, we have to operate as if Jimmy G is not going to be on the field. And if that's the case, then I think the Chargers is kind of a must-win game for them. So I'm going to take the Chargers here minus the 6 as well. Next game is Mac Jones and the New England Patriots heading to Jerry World after a victory against the reeling Jets to face a Dallas Cowboys team that just got stunned by the Arizona Cardinals. This is a little bit of a revenge matchup for Zeke as he enters AT&T Stadium for the first time without the big star on his helmet. Dallas is favored by 6.5.
Yeah, with it being under 7, I like Dallas minus the 6.5. I think this is one of those Vegas trap games to me, though. They kept it under 7 for a reason. They want you to bet Dallas. So
Yeah.
that tends to usually believe New England covers. But I just think Dallas has to come home. They've got to come back and show what they can do and get themselves back together, have a good defensive performance, and do something on offense. And I think they can shut down the New England offense. So I do like Dallas to cover here.
Yeah, that's the when we first looked at this game earlier this week, Dallas was -7 and then it's dropped down to 6.5, and that changed my pick there. So the Patriots present a potentially difficult matchup for sure because Belichick schemes well,
Yep.
especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think the problem for the Patriots is on offense. So I think Dallas turns it around this week and gets a W. I, again, was a little concerned with taking Dallas at -7, but with this dropping down to 6.5, I'm going to go with Dallas to cover. All right. Joshua Dobbs and the Arizona Cardinals look to carry their momentum after a big win against the Dallas Cowboys into San Francisco as they face Brock Purdy in the 49ers. Arizona comes up against another really good defense, but the difference here could be a dynamic offense on the Niner side of the ball. San Francisco's got a big point spread here. They're favored by 14.
Yeah, 14 is a lot. But like we've said, we thought Arizona was the worst team in the NFL at the beginning of the year. I think now we've got to say that's the Bears, but Arizona's still got to be up there. So we've seen what 49ers have done every game so far. It's a home game. Like there's no reason to me Arizona should even contend in this game. So I'm going to take the Niners to cover the 14.
Yeah, I think Arizona gets brought back to reality here a little bit, especially because the Niners just watched what can happen if you do underestimate the speed on this team. So pretty significant spread, but I'm with you. I'm going to take the Niners here minus the 14. Wrapping up our Sunday games is Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to the Big Apple after a huge win against the Bears at home to face a New York Jets team that's struggling to find their footing after losing Aaron Rodgers in the season opener. Kansas City is favored by 9.5.
I'm taking the Chiefs until the Jets can figure out an offense. I don't know. I think the Chiefs can roll in this one.
Yeah, Chiefs here -9.5. I'm doing the same thing. New York is struggling to score. It looks like there's a little bit of headbutting going on between the Wilsons on the sidelines after the last game. So I look for the Chiefs to capitalize on that and come away with a pretty convincing win on the road. Last game of this week, Monday night, Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks head back east after a 10-point victory at home against the Panthers to face a New York Giants team returning home after an 18-point loss against the 49ers. The Giants are favored here by 1.5. I'm taking Seattle here. They're putting up a lot of points on the board in these last 2 weeks. The Giants are giving up almost 33 points a game. I think Seattle wins this one easily, so I'm going to take Seattle plus the points.
Yeah, this one's an interesting line to me also. I like Seattle to win the game, so I'm definitely going to take them with the points. I'm just not quite sure I understand this line. I don't know. I don't understand this. Like, if I was putting this out, I would say it's Seattle like -5. So I don't know where this where this line's coming from, but I definitely like Seattle to cover this and win the game.
All right. Well, that is the last game of the week. So on to our locks. Workman, I'll let you go first.
Trying to decide on my lock. I think the one I like the most, and I just think they have to get right this game. So I'm taking Jacksonville -3 in London.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I didn't think that was where you were going to go with that. I'm taking this Seattle at New York Giants game. It's too easy. This line does not make any sense at all. No sense at all. To your point, 5 points plus is where I expected this to come on Seattle side of the equation after New York's defense can't stop a nosebleed. So I don't know where this -1.5 is coming from. Them being at home obviously hasn't made a difference. So I'm locking in with the Seattle at New York Giants at the -1.5. All right, guys. Well, that is our week 4 picks for NFL week 4 edition. As always, we appreciate you guys listening. We are now on YouTube. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple. Please go on, like, share, comment. We started to get some comments on the NCAA football side of the equation on YouTube. So thank you guys for interacting. As always, if you guys want to have us hit any specific discussions or have any comments or want to pick some games and you want us to call them out, please feel free to hit us up on Twitter while it's free. Once Twitter goes into paid, I don't know what we're going to do there. But yeah, I'm at Z Reese Downing. Workman is at Jacob Workman. More importantly, you can hit us up on our show socials, which is at Tuesday Night TD Pod down there on the lower right hand corner. That is our handle for all of our socials. Workman, you have any final thoughts here?
We're going to continue the thought of the week of eat 'em up, Lions, eat 'em up. We got a big one Thursday night in Lambeau.
That's right. Kicking off the week right. All right, guys. Thank you again for listening. For Jacob Workman, this is Reese Downing, Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL Week 4. Please go check out our NCAA picks, especially. We are killing it on both sides of the ball, getting better on the NFL side and doing extremely well on the NCAA side. So thank you guys for listening. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Cheers, guys.
See ya.